listening to the Mark Bradford Alchemy for Life podcast.
Self-control is a tiny thing. Hey there. Do you have self-control? Have you ever been told that you should exercise self-control? Or have more self-control? Have you ever examined a problem that you have and thought, if I only had more self-control, I wouldn't have that problem? Do you have kids? Because then you know all about self-control, don't you? Stop touching her. Stop. Keep your hands to yourself. Look, just quiet. Just shh. Don't. Yeah, you would definitely know that. See, this is one of those tropes that's thrown around all the time. In fact, it's, again, used so often that it loses its meaning. It's one of those core things that's powerful and in short supply and can change your life. Simply put, self-control is a measure of control that you can exert on yourself. Pretty simple, right? Well, we're talking about this because it occurred to me that a lot of what I talk about actually does involve self-control. Making changes, altering behavior, accomplishing a goal, applying a system to accomplish a goal, etc., etc., and of course, managing time, energy, and resources. And you knew I had to throw that in. So since we're talking about it directly and indirectly so often, let me ask you this. When was the last time you exerted self-control? Think about it. The last time, as of like literally right now, listening to this. And just blurt it out. You can go ahead and pause, and then think, and then blurt it out, and then restart. Okay, if you paused it and came back, hey, welcome back. So for me, it was forcing myself to go to the gym, even though my stomach felt kind of weird. And no, it's not indicative of the glorious way I run my life. It just happens that I was making these notes for this podcast on the way back from doing that. If it hadn't been for that, it probably would have been something a lot more mundane, but that's what it was. But let's talk about you. What do you think of me? No, I'm kidding. Let's talk about you. What was your thing? Was it spitting out your gum because you were chewing too long? Speaking of gum, was it chewing a piece of gum so that you wouldn't eat more? Which is a pretty useful trick. Was it not raising your voice when you were in an argument with someone? That you just felt that you kicked in that self-control and went, okay. And you kept your cool and you kept your voice down? Was it letting someone pass you on the road who clearly needed to get to their destination faster than you because they're far, far more important? You know, all those tiny little things still count as self-control. So why do I bring these things up? Because like I say, in the automation of balance, it is sometimes the little things that really make up your life. The same goes for self-control. These tiny little moments of self-control are what kind of steers you to get to your goal. If you've ever lost a bunch of weight, but don't feel that you really did anything other than eat smarter and better, you are probably constantly thinking about how much you put in, how fast you ate it, the quality of what you were eating, all those little tiny little things. In fact, one of the diets I read in a book that actually helped me lose weight at one point, one of the sample diets was simply a gentleman relating that all he did was weigh himself like twice a day. He ate anything he wanted, and he weighed himself twice a day. And if he started to gain weight, he would eat less. But what the guy found was he almost never ran into that, but instead he ran into losing too much weight. If your body style is such that you feel like you have a ton of weight and you've never really lost enough, that doesn't sound right. But if you're somebody who has lost a few pounds or only needs to lose a few pounds, that can be a concern. And for this gentleman, it was, because he also wanted to work out and bulk up. So he actually ate like a bunch of donuts to compensate for that. And I would submit to you that he was making hundreds of decisions every day, little tiny little decisions. I won't have seconds. I won't have this tiny bit. Maybe I should have that instead of this. Maybe I won't eat for a snack at all. Maybe I'll start buying more like nuts and raw food. Little tiny things that when given a chance make a huge difference. It always adds up. Whether it's weight loss, whether it's changing a behavior, whether it's your personality, even if it has to do with, you being a better person in your own frame of mind. It's little tiny things. If you feel like you could strive to be a bit more honorable, you could strive to be a bit more loyal, and so on and so forth, choose an adjective that sounds great. Little tiny decisions make you feel better about that. Less impulsive, a better shopper, and so forth. So I think what I'm trying to tell you is how important self-control is, and that it's not this global all or nothing thing. So it gets demonized and it gets treated as if self-control is really something we just tell our kids. Or self-control is something that only like someone who has a major problem, like an eating disorder or something like that would have, which is not true. Self-control is something that we exercise in the moments of our life when nobody's looking. I'll bet you've had a number of little moments of self-control that no one will ever know about. And yet it meant the world to you when you did it, when you looked back on it. And in me telling you to think about when the last time was that you exercised self-control, I'm hoping to get you to think about it more. And hopefully you recognize that it was sort of a big deal, even though it wasn't a big deal at all in some cases. Now, in other cases, you may say, holy crap, it's shocking that you said that, Mark, because it was a big deal that I did that. I've had this huge problem and 10 minutes ago I didn't do that thing, or I did that thing. And it's made a lot of difference. So this entire podcast was simply about you recognizing that you have self-control, recognizing that self-control is a tiny thing, and recognizing that self-control is made up of little tiny actions. And that's why it's difficult to track, it's difficult to recognize, and it's difficult to implement. Do you see that? Do you see that now? Because it's so tiny and granular that it's so difficult to just say, well, I'll just have self-control. Well, with what? With the thousands of decisions that you have to make today regarding food alone? With the hundreds and hundreds of decisions that you have to make in your relationship? It's a tiny thing. It's tiny little things. So I hope I've helped you to think about these tiny things. And I look forward to the sequel to this, in which we do a little bit of homework on it. But for now, no homework. And I just appreciate your self-control. I appreciate the self-control of actually listening to this, because it takes a while before something becomes habit. And if you're listening to me right now, you had the self-control to say, you know what? I'm going to try to listen to a podcast that, might be helpful while I do the dishes or do this thing. So I appreciate that. Thank you. As you always find, I can't thank you enough. So take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week. Hey, it's me again. Thanks for listening. 2 things for you. If you like this, I'd really love that you rate it on iTunes or Spotify. Would love to have the stars that are appropriate, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And the other thing is, I do have a new book out, and I would love for you to take a peek at it. It's called The Sword and the Sunflower. It's on Amazon as a Kindle as well as a paperback. Thanks. Just a little blurb at the end here. Take care.